No one saw it coming. Not fast enough, not clearly enough, not until the sky turned black at noon. Over Shanghai, what began as a shimmering distortion in the upper atmosphere resolved into an obsidian arc that stretched from horizon to horizon. At first, people thought it was a freak weather event. Some even took out their phones to capture the spectacle. Then the temperature dropped 10 degrees in less than a minute. The clouds didn't move. They simply vanished. And the sun blinked. Out. From Johannesburg to Moscow, New Delhi to Buenos Aires, the world came to a halt. News anchors on emergency broadcasts struggled to maintain calm as networks began to flicker. Satellites stopped responding. A global aviation halt was ordered, but dozens of aircraft vanished before they could land. One pilot's final transmission played on a loop across major networks. I don't know what this is. It's not a ship. It's a wall. In Washington, D.C., President Kowalski stood before cameras, flanked by generals urging unity and patience. His voice cut out mid-sentence. The signal didn't drop. It was erased. Every recording, every backup, was just static. From deep beneath, the Rocky Mountains, a secure military command post scrambled to respond, but nothing got out. Communications were silent. No satellites, no internet, no radio, only local short-range tech still worked. Then came the sound. It wasn't heard, so much as felt, a low-frequency pulse that vibrated in teeth and bones. Glass cracked. Dogs howled. Children clutched their heads and screamed. On Times Square's still-lit mega-screens, text began to scroll in perfect English, Mandarin, Arabic, Swahili, and Russian, all at once. Earth is now a resource acquisition. Zone. Do not resist. You have been designated non-threat intelligent life. Collection begins now. In an abandoned subway tunnel beneath New York, Elena Mirek crouched in the shadows, breathing slow and silent. Once a decorated combat engineer in the NATO Special Operations Corps, now she was just a ghost with a duffel bag full of scavenged gear and a pistol she hadn't fired in 6 years. She'd seen the first harvest, a tractor beam, wide as a city. Block, descended silently over Midtown. It didn't burn or crush, it simply lifted. People, vehicles, trees, even buildings peeled off the earth as if gravity had forgotten them. Screams echoed for seconds before silence reclaimed the sky. Then the beam winked off, and what was once Midtown was a crater, scattered with loose earth and crushed metal. Elena hadn't looked away. She hadn't blinked. She just ran. Now she sat in the flickering dark, counting her ammo, checking her makeshift EMP grenades made from old microwaves. No plan, no orders, just survival. A faint voice crackled on her radio. Not military, not automated. A human voice, young, British accented, desperate. If you're hearing this, they've taken London. They don't use comms like we do. I think I've found a way to spoof their signal bands. They don't expect us to fight back. I'm going to make them regret that. She leaned forward. That was the first live human voice she'd heard in days. She pressed the button. Repeat. Transmission. Who are you? The voice replied, startled. Dev Patel. I'm in Nairobi now. I was a civilian. Kind of. Doesn't matter. We're building something. You in? Elena stared at the ceiling, where distant tremors shook dust loose. Onto her jacket, somewhere above, another beam began to hum. Another city? Another harvest? She closed her eyes, breathed in deep. I'm in. Above Earth, the Varn Dominion ship Ultherian began deploying its second wave of collectors. Inside, a Varn logistics officer clicked his mandibles and muttered, Primitive, species, high curiosity, low coordination, weak threat profile. Then he paused, staring at a screen flashing red. One of the resource beams had been disrupted. Something had pushed back. They didn't come to destroy Earth. They came to strip it, methodically, clinically, like a farmer harvesting wheat. Humanity wasn't an enemy. It wasn't even a species worth conquering. To the Varn, humans were material, biomass, organic fuel with incidental intelligence. The first cities vanished within hours. Entire blocks lifted into orbit by gravitational siphons, reduced to molecular slurries, then sorted for energy content. The oceans were next, skimming for biodiversity, rich plankton fields, and micro-mineral deposits. The Varn were precise, almost surgical. They didn't obliterate cities unless they resisted. Most didn't. Not at first. Those who ran died. Those who hid had a chance. In the gutted shell of an office building in Nairobi's former tech district, Dev Patel crouched beside a table cluttered with alien parts. He had rings under his eyes, knuckles scraped raw, and a portable battery. Pack fused to his belt. The body of a downed Varn scout drone lay before him, half dismantled. Plasma conduits cracked. Their capacitors run on ionized blood salts, he muttered, recording into his notebook. No moving parts in the neural array. It's all thought-linked tech, organic reactive circuits. Damn elegant. He blinked at the thought. Elegant, as if he admired the monster that had just erased half of humanity. A soft ping echoed from his salvaged radio rig, an alert on the open resistance band, to any survivors in the eastern sector. There's movement over Kilimanjaro. Repeat, collectors are en route. Hide. Do not engage. Dev leaned back and stared at the drone. Don't engage, huh? He whispered, then turned to the small girl curled up behind a desk nearby, wrapped in blankets. Mina, you still asleep? The child didn't stir. Sedated. Safe. For now. Dev adjusted his cracked glasses, then reached into his pack, pulling out 2 battery cells and a melted toaster coil. I'm done hiding. Half a world away, in a bunker beneath the ruins of Prague, Elena Mirek stared at a hologram projected by a salvaged Varn communication node. It showed Earth like a patchwork quilt. Red zones marked active harvest sectors. Yellow zones were already stripped. Only a handful of regions flickered. Blue, unconfirmed or resistant. One of them blinked near Nairobi. She traced it with her finger. Whoever you are, keep blinking. Outside, her team, what was left of the Czech National Guard and a few locals, scavenged abandoned rail cars for scrap metal and electronics. They were building something crude, an improvised EMP launcher mounted to a flatbed train. Power cells are ready, a lieutenant said. Not enough range to hit orbit, but close range it might blind their local drones. Elena nodded. Deploy it near the next harvest zone. Let's see what happens when we punch a god in the face. Up in low orbit, inside the Varn logistics. High Voltherian, alarms flared for the first time. One of their drones, a scouting unit in Sector E7, had failed to report. Primary Overseer Vorkash loomed over the sensory pit, 6 limbs folded in analytical poise. Report anomaly. A technician analyst clicked nervously. Unit was dismantled by non-orbital natives. Unknown mechanism. It appears deliberate. Vorkash's eyes flared. Impossible. Earth species lack the capacity. Evidence. Suggests otherwise. Vorkash turned slowly, mandibles twitching. Send a skirmisher unit. No suppression field. We'll study their behavior in a stress state. And if they resist? Erase the city. That night in Nairobi, as another harvesting beam began to descend, Dev Patel stood on a rooftop, holding a cobbled-together plasma spike in his trembling hands. He'd hardwired a Varn blood capacitor into a 12V car battery. It should explode. Probably. The beam shimmered as it reached down toward the city center. Dev activated the pulse. The sky lit up like lightning. A cascade of sparks erupted inside the beam's column. For a heartbeat, it flickered, then snapped out of existence. The drone above it sputtered and fell, smashing into a crumbling high-rise. Dev stared at the wreckage, heart hammering. It worked. Far below, civilians peeked from hiding. Whispers passed through broken streets. Someone had stopped the harvest. In the Varn command vessel, Vorkash watched the drone's feed die. The Overseer leaned forward, eyes narrowing. The humans are adapting. For 3 days, the world held its breath. The Varn drones circled like vultures, but none landed in Nairobi again. Something had changed. For the first time, the Dominion didn't understand something, and that made them hesitate. That hesitation cost them. Thousands of kilometers away in Lagos, the beat of drums echoed through the hollowed streets. In the darkness of a flooded underpass, an insurgent group gathered around a flickering tablet showing Dev Patel's hijacked signal, the disruption of a harvesting beam. "This is no myth," said Chika Okoye, once a neuroscientist, now a reluctant, insurgent leader. "The Varn tech responds to rhythm, resonance, patterns. That's how they suppress us." She adjusted the cracked speakers and slowly turned up the volume. A looping audio file played, overlaying low-frequency human speech, patterns with ancient Yoruba polyrhythms. The effect was subtle, but powerful. A Varn observation drone nearby staggered mid-flight, shimmered, then plummeted into the bay with a burst of static. It was the first confirmed downing of a drone without weapons. Her team cheered, but Chika stayed focused. "It's not just noise. It's language, frequency. We speak in ways they can't parse." She looked up. "And now, we sing war." In the ruins of Berlin, a teen named Casper Leonert duct-taped a broken GoPro to a long-range transmitter. With fingers bleeding from sharp metal, he uploaded footage from Dev's explosion, the Lagos rhythm test, and survivor clips from around the world. He called the channel Firewall. It was old-school internet, a janky archive site on a hidden node. No encryption, just truth. He embedded one line in bold at the top of every post. "They're not invincible. We're not done." By morning, it had 30 million views, then 100, then global meshnet clones, and the Varn watched too. Elena Mirek saw the footage on a salvaged tablet powered by a bike generator. She smiled, a tight, grim smile, as she loaded the last of the homemade C4 into a repurposed drone shell. Her team had spent days digging beneath the streets of Warsaw, planting thermal detonators under the largest Varn collector ship in the region. "We go tonight," she said. "They think we're ants. Let's sting!" They launched the drones manually, slingshotting them through decayed subway vents and sewer shafts. When the first drone reached the ship's underbelly, Elena gave the signal. The sky bloomed in fire. Ship the size of a football stadium cracked open like a metal egg, crashing to the earth in a wave of smoke and plasma. She watched the fireball from a rooftop, her face lit orange by the blaze. "We are the line," she whispered. On the Altherian, Overseer Vorkash clicked furiously through combat logs. There were now 6 confirmed drone losses in Earth's southern hemisphere. 2 ships disabled, 1 obliterated. "This behavior contradicts all projections," hissed his second-in-command. "They were assessed as fragmented and disorganized." Vorkash turned a black eye toward him. "Recalculate. Elevate threat profile. Initiate retaliation protocol 3. Scorch their resistance. Coordinates?" He paused, staring at a cluster of red dots on the screen. "Start with Lagos." But Lagos was ready. The insurgents had moved underground, reinforced their bunkers with salvaged Varn alloys. Chika stood on a rooftop, arms spread as she played the same rhythmic signal into the sky at max amplitude. "Let them come," she said, and come they did. 2 Varn skirmisher ships dropped from orbit, spraying plasma toward rooftops. But their targeting systems faltered mid-attack. The pulsing rhythm scrambled their spatial awareness. The insurgents used the moment to strike, rocket-propelled grenades, jury-rigged EMP darts, even explosive drones flown by hand. The Varn ships buckled. One tried to retreat, but crashed against a high-rise coated in mirrored panels that confused. Its sensors. Victory. Bloodied and imperfect, but theirs. That night, a new video dropped on Firewall. It opened with footage of the downed collector ship, followed by rhythmic chants in dozens of languages. Then words across the screen. You invaded a world of artists, engineers, and dreamers. You thought we were prey, but you never studied what happens when humanity fights with nothing left to lose. Far above Earth, for the first time, the Varn Dominion tagged a planet as hostile, and Earth whispered back, "Now we're at war." They came in the night, silent, angular ships descending on the Amazon like falling stars. No beams, no signals, just fire. The Varn had adjusted. The Lagos disaster forced their hand. No more methodical harvests, no more underestimations. Now, they came to scorch, to crush resistance before it rooted too deep. That meant extermination zones. They began with Manaus. Thousands died before the first scream reached the resistance networks. But they didn't die alone. In a bunker beneath the Peruvian highlands, Elena Mirek watched the red dot blink on her map. Another city gone. She traced the edge of the burning zone with a calloused finger. Too big to be a precision strike. Too fast to be automated. The Varn were improvising, so would they. "Activate network echo," she ordered. "Patch me in too. Firewall." A few clicks, and the familiar chime echoed from the speaker. "You're live," said Casper from somewhere in Northern Europe. "Audience is everyone." Elena took a breath. "This is Commander Mirek of Central Node 3. The Varn have changed tactics. No more abductions. Now they burn. If we do nothing, Earth ends in weeks." Her voice stayed steady, cold and sharp. "But we've been studying them too. We know their harvesters are coordinated through a narrow-band pulse relay. We found a way to spoof it. And now we're going to hijack a mothership." A pause. "We don't want survivors. We want fighters. Meet us in Chile. We strike in 5 days. Bring everything that bleeds." She ended the transmission. Across the fractured remains of the world, resistance cells lifted their heads. Deep in the Kenya-Uganda highlands, Dev Patel winced as he bolted a Varn signal crystal into a laptop. Frame fused to a drone controller. Beside him, Mina, now wide awake, clutching a screwdriver too big for her hands, watched with silent intensity. "It's beautiful," she whispered. Dev glanced up. The crystal shimmered with alien light, pulsing to a beat only machines could. "Feel?" "Yeah," he muttered. "Beautiful and stolen." He clicked a key. The drone above them blinked, then hovered perfectly still. On his screen, a Varn interface flickered. It had worked. They had remote access to the collector network. On the Ultherian, Overseer Vorkash studied the planet's data streams. Human activity had become unpredictable, networked yet disordered. It was chaos with teeth. "Harvest index has dropped 27%, a subordinate chittered. "At this rate, full pacification will exceed projection by 4 rotations. Unacceptable." "Deploy the decimators," Vorkash said coldly. "Trigger orbital cleanse cycles in sectors with confirmed resistance. End this primitive noise." "Which sector first?" Vorkash tapped the display. A red circle blinked over South America. "Burn their rally point." But by the time the Varn ships began descent over the Andes, it was already too late. Elena's team had buried pulse inhibitors across the mountains, scrapped from Varn drones, fine-tuned by Dev's code, and amplified by old-world broadcast towers now welded into monoliths of vengeance. When the first decimator came into range, it screamed, not audibly, but in data. Systems corrupted, sensors looped, targeting scrambled. Then came the missiles, human-made. Human-fired, coated in stolen Varn alloys to mask heat signatures. 3 struck home. The decimator ship detonated in a bloom of silver flame, its debris streaking the sky like divine retribution. The mountains shook with the explosion. From every hidden shelter and bombed-out ruin, survivors watched the sky burn, and, for the first time in months, they cheered. 3 days later, in a storm-swept desert in northern Chile, hundreds gathered beneath the bones of an abandoned observatory. Makeshift armor, hand-forged weapons, stolen Varn rifles, they looked like a broken army from a dying world. But their eyes burned. Elena stood atop a collapsed dome, flanked by Dev and Chica. Behind them, the blueprint of a Varn mothership flickered, on a tarp made from parachutes. "We are no longer prey," she told them. "We have a target, we have the keys, and tomorrow we take the fight to orbit." A pause. "The Varn think Earth is weak. Let's teach them what desperation really looks like." Above Earth, the Dominion began reinforcing their fleet, not because Earth was winning, but because, for the first time, they were afraid it might. The desert wind tore through the Chilean plateau, flapping makeshift flags and stinging exposed skin. 100 resistance fighters crouched in the wreckage of an old observatory, their breath rising like ghosts in the cold pre-dawn air. Above them, a Varn mothership hovered in low orbit, immense, triangular, casting an unnatural twilight over the mountains. Its smooth underbelly glowed with shifting patterns. 1,000 alien systems, watching, waiting. They called it Ulsaroth, the Bone Harvester. It had erased 3 cities in a week. Now it was the target. In the command tent, Dev Patel was rewiring, a salvaged power node, sweat beading on his brow despite the chill. "This isn't going to hold long," he muttered. "The pulse codes are stable, but once we're in the ship's field, their systems will try to overwrite the signal. If we lose the spoofing circuit—" "We won't," Elena said. She stared at the flickering map on the table, the mothership's trajectory, the booster launch zones, the fallback paths. It was insane, reckless. It was their only shot. Behind them, Chica Okoye strapped a signal drum to her chest, rigged with EMP coils and a low-frequency amplifier. "We're counting on chaos," she said. "That's our edge." Dev gave her a crooked smile. That and duct tape. The launch platforms were old mining rail carts refitted with booster rockets. Only 6 would fire. Only 4 might reach orbit. Each carried a 2-person team and a repurposed Varn infiltration pod, meant to sneak inside during the next harvesting cycle. Now they would do the opposite. At Euro 6 Wow, the plateau shuddered. The rockets screamed skyward, trailing smoke and defiance. Varn sensors immediately lit up, sirens echoing across their orbital fleet. Skirmisher drones deployed like angry insects. The first pod was shot down mid-climb, disintegrated in a flash of plasma. The second dodged, twisted, vanished into the clouds. The third exploded on launch. The fourth pierced through the lower atmosphere. Inside Pod 4, Elena and Dev held on to rusted grips as the pod spun wildly. The hull groaned. Lights blinked red. "We're going in hot," Dev said through gritted teeth. "We've got one chance." Impact. The pod smashed into the underside of Ulsaroth, drilling through a service hatch before detonating its breach charge. Fire. Screams. Airless silence. Then gravity. They were inside. The interior was alive. Walls pulsed with biolight. Floors shifted like muscle. Varn technicians turned in alarm. Too slow. Chica's team burst in from Pod 2. Plasma rifles blazing. One of her team was cut down instantly by an arc of ion energy. She didn't pause, just dropped to her knees, slammed her signal drum into the floor, and activated it. The ship shuddered. The frequency scrambled local systems. Lights flickered. Alarms screamed in Varn dialects. Auto turrets spun uselessly. "Blind to targets." Elena led the charge toward the core. "Get us to the relay node," she shouted. Dev was already ahead, hardwiring the Varn console with stolen interface crystals. "This system is smarter than us," he muttered. "Good thing we're more stubborn." He jammed in the final sequence and hit enter. The ship blinked. From orbit, Varn Command watched in horror as the mothership's systems, once flawless, began transmitting corrupted commands. Targeting arrays went dark, engines overloaded, a cascade of errors spread like fire. Human intrusion confirmed. A technician screamed. Vorkash leaned forward. "Purge the vessel!" But Overseer, now! Inside Ul-Saroth, a self-destruct countdown began. Elena heard it echo through the walls, low and guttural, like a death knell. "We triggered. It," she said. "We have 2 minutes," Dev confirmed, ripping out a side panel to extract the ship's navigation core. "We're not making it!" "Give me the data. Go," she said. "I'm not leaving. Go!" She shoved him toward the evac chute. Chica met her gaze across the chamber. No words needed. They both knew. Elena planted the last detonator beside the core. "Tell Earth we can kill them." Dev escaped. The ship detonated in orbit, splintering apart in a burst of light visible across the hemisphere. That night, Firewall broadcast a new message. One of their gods just died screaming. Elena Mirek, Chica Okoye, heroes of the Skyhook. Their names are stars now. We can reach them. We can burn them. The Varn Dominion, for the first time, marked a battlefield not as secured, but as lost. And Earth, bloodied but rising, whispered, "You thought we were weak. You're just beginning to learn how wrong you were." They called it the Echo Week. After the destruction of Ul-Zaroth, Earth's skies turned quiet. Too quiet. The Varn didn't retaliate immediately. Not with fire, not with ships. Instead, they unleashed something far colder. Voices. Every device, every hacked broadcast node, every salvaged speaker suddenly hissed to life across the globe. No codes, no threats, only one repeating message in every major human tongue. You killed your own to strike us. You are broken. You are alone. This is not war. This is extinction. Accept your end with grace. It wasn't a demand. It was a pronouncement, a funeral notice for humanity, sent before the burial. In the jungles of Vietnam, Dev Patel clutched a cracked radio as the message looped again. His hand trembled, but not with fear, with rage. He hadn't spoken since Elena's. Death. Not really. Not in a way that counted. Now, as the radio played the Dominion's poison, he picked up the mic. "You want to talk about extinction?" he said. "You think grief breaks us? Let me teach you something about humans, you smug bastards. Grief is where we begin." He slammed the transmitter into Firewall's relay tower. It went viral in less than 3 hours, resistance hubs across. Earth responded. In Glasgow, a violinist played over burning ruins, live-streamed to thousands, the melody raw, defiant weeping. In Johannesburg, dancers moved through bombed streets in rhythmic defiance, amplifying the same sonic pulses that brought down drones months ago. In Tokyo, children painted murals of fallen heroes, Elena's face now a towering symbol of Earth's resistance, haloed in red and gold. The Varn had tried to unravel the human spirit. Instead, they reminded Earth what it was fighting for. Above orbit, on the flagship Altharian, Overseer Vorkash watched the footage spread. "These reactions, they are illogical," hissed his second-in-command. "Loss should induce compliance." Vorkash said nothing. He was starting to understand. Emotion wasn't a weakness. It was Earth's most dangerous weapon. 3 days later, Earth struck again. Not with missiles. With Music Dev, with Casper and a dozen engineers, launched what they called Project Siren. They hijacked old telecom satellites, stitched together weather balloons, and reactivated pre-fall audio servers. Then, on every Varn frequency they could spoof, they played one single sound file, a mashup of every Earth culture's most defiant songs, drums from Lagos, Tuvan throat singing. Bagpipes over symphonic metal, native chants, revolutionary hymns, a heartbeat of 8 billion humans crying, "We are still here." The Varn, whose neural systems weren't designed for layered emotional input, suffered immediate chaos. A carrier ship over Canada veered off course and crashed into the Rockies. 2 drones mid-harvest in Myanmar self-destructed. Varn Command issued a full neural quarantine, and Earth kept singing. From the remnants of Buenos Aires, Mina, Dev's niece, no longer a child, posted her own message to Firewall. She held up a tattered photo of her parents killed in the first wave. You say we are alone. You say we are broken. But you don't understand who you invaded. We cry, we mourn. Then we build something new from the ashes. Behind her, a camp of survivors lifted salvaged instruments, welding tools, and weapons. They were already preparing the next strike. In a secret orbital hangar, formerly a Varn refueling station, Dev's team began assembling a hybrid ship. Human frame, Varn propulsion. A suicide risk to even fly, let alone fight, but they named it anyway. The Elena. On Ultherion, Vorkash watched the spread of human music with a cold, growing dread. It doesn't stop, a technician rasped. We block one source, 10 more appear. The Overseer finally spoke. They do not fear us. They transform us. He turned toward the fleet command relay. Begin construction of the Singularity Lance. Sir? A weapon they can't corrupt. One final strike. One that silences their planet. Entirely. But below, Earth no longer trembled. It was too busy preparing its own final song, and it would be heard in every star. Above Earth, the stars wept fire. The Singularity Lance, a gleaming spear of dark matter wrapped in quantum shielding, slowly took shape on the edge of Varn-controlled orbit. Its core pulsed like a black sun, feeding on collapsed antimatter. A weapon not meant to strike cities, but to erase continents, oceans, crust. One launch, one impact. Earth would die screaming. The Dominion would move on, clean, efficient, unchallenged again. Overseer Vorkash stood in the Lance's observation chamber, his hands clasped behind his back, gaze cold and ancient. Finalize trajectory, he said. Target. Cradle of Resistance. Andy's sector. There would be no more speeches, no more broadcasts, just silence. But Earth had one card left, and her name was the Elena. Dev Patel stared through the reinforced cockpit of the Patchwork. Starcraft, the blue glow of the planet shining behind him. Inside the hull, human metal merged with alien bone. Salvaged tech throbbed with hybrid code, some of it still unpredictable. Beside him, Mina adjusted the targeting console. She wore her parents' old flight jackets, sleeves stitched with resistance. Patches. She was 16. She'd never lived in a world that wasn't burning, but her hands were steady. We intercept in 8 minutes, she said. Dev didn't look at her. He was watching the data scroll. We'll have to breach the outer. Gravity shell manually. No AI can calculate the pull that close to the Lance. I know. We might not come back. Mina smiled faintly. That was true the day they landed. Back on Earth, resistance hubs around the globe synchronized. Casper activated the last firewall pulse, launching thousands of low-orbit scramblers, Varntech repurposed to jam the Lance's relay systems. In Berlin, old missiles were fired in synchronized patterns, not to destroy the weapon, but to mislead its targeting AI. In Nairobi, Chica's brother relayed the final audio payload through atmospheric drones, coded sonic pulses designed to agitate the Lance's internal frequency dampeners. They weren't trying to destroy the weapon. They were opening a window, just enough time for the Elena to punch through. In low orbit, the Varn defense fleet began to collapse inward as the Lance's systems went haywire, drones misfired, shields blinked, systems rebooted. Then, the Elena came screaming through the chaos like a wounded comet, leaving behind a trail of flame and fury. Dev aimed straight for the Lance's spinal channel. Now, Mina! She ejected the payload, a resonance bomb of human design charged with Varn crystal arrays rigged to explode in a frequency that would destabilize the entire black matter shell. It slammed into the lance's heart. 1 second, 2, nothing. Then the sky cracked open. The lance detonated inward, folding in on itself with a scream that shook gravity. A vacuum pulse swallowed every nearby drone, tearing them apart atom by atom. Dev gritted his teeth, gripping the controls. The Elena spiraled, its hull screaming, "Mina! Eject! No! Now!" She slammed the emergency core release. The ship broke apart. They spun into darkness. On Earth, Firewall went silent. The last transmission was a simple one. Dev's voice, calm and clear. "The lance is gone. If this is the end, then let it be a human one. We chose it, and we earned it." Overseer Vorkash watched the lance collapse. The silence on the bridge of Ultharion was suffocating. "Orders, sir?" someone whispered. He didn't answer, because in his bones, he realized something terrifying. The Varn had lost control of the narrative. They were no longer gods. Earth had become something else. Not prey, not a victory, a myth. Far below, Mina's escape pod streaked across the sky, burning over the Pacific. Fishermen in Chile looked up and whispered prayers to a new kind of star. Heroes return. Earth had survived the unthinkable, but one more battle remained, one final reckoning between a fading empire and a planet that refused to kneel. The fires in orbit died. The Singularity Lance, the crown jewel of Varn supremacy, was gone, ripped into quantum shreds by a ship Earth wasn't supposed to build, piloted by a girl they didn't even notice. In its place, silence and fear. The Varn fleet hovered in disarray, command nodes severed, drone cohesion failing. On Ultharion, Overseer Vorkash stood paralyzed, watching sensor data that made no sense. Human resistance strength rising? Fleet destruction ratio 37% and climbing. They're coordinating without central AI, without sublinks, without us. Across Earth, firewall relays screamed to life. A single signal burst across the world, a beacon encoded. In every language, every dialect. Now. In Beijing, sleeper cells activated jury-rigged kinetic cannons built from scrap satellites. In Cairo, old solar collectors turned into precision orbital mirrors, blinding drone optics. In Detroit, resistance techs uploaded corrupted Varn language packets into fleet-wide networks, flooding translation cores. Humanity struck with everything it had left, and more than the Varn thought it ever possessed. And they weren't fighting to survive anymore. They were fighting to win. Mina awoke in a cold bunker beneath the Andes, wrapped in salvaged thermal blankets, ribs fractured but alive. Dev was beside her, one arm burned, face gaunt, eyes full of fire. "You made it," she whispered. "We both did." The news was pouring in, Varn fleets falling back to lunar orbit, civilian ships on Venus refusing to obey commands. Even a Varn dreadnought over the Indian Ocean deactivated mid-hover and crashed like a meteor, its crew already gone, defecting, or dead. "Do we have a chance?" Mina asked. Dev didn't answer. He stood, walked to the cracked window, and looked at the horizon, then smiled. More than that. On Ultharion, Vorkash made one last broadcast. No threats, no posturing, only. "This, why do you resist? What is left worth saving? You are fragmented, primitive, scattered," Earth replied through Firewall, the voice of all its peoples stitched together. "We're not scattered. We're human. We bled. We burned. And we learned. You thought we were weak. But you forgot. We come from a world that kills us every day. We adapted to survive it. What did you adapt to, Varn? Order? Control? Then it's you who should fear extinction. The final assault came from a place no one expected: the moon. For decades, the Varn had used lunar stations as orbital control centers. But now, rebel factions among the enslaved species, Zenthari, Durok, even dissident Varn, rose up, emboldened by Earth's defiance. The moon lit up with fire. The Dominion fractured. Command chains collapsed. Dev stood in the new global command center, hastily built from the ruins of an old NATO silo, as feeds from across the solar system came online. One by one, stars of hope blinked into existence. A resistance fleet in Mars orbit. Venus colonies going dark on purpose to deny the Varn further foothold. Asteroid miners detonating their own rigs to create debris fields, blocking reinforcements, and from the stars, silence. The Dominion was not defeated, but it was broken. Overseer Vorkash fled in the last hour, his flagship limping toward deep space, its wake full of burning wrecks and broken pride. As he drifted into the void, he left behind a war he no longer understood, a people he could not conquer, a world he could not erase. On Earth, Mina stepped onto the platform at the United Resistance Summit, one of the first peaceful assemblies since the fall. No uniform, no anthem, just a microphone and a sky clearing overhead. She looked up, breathed in, spoke softly. We were meant to die. We didn't. They thought Earth was weak, but we're still here. And now, we decide what comes next. The crowd didn't erupt. It didn't need to. Instead, a wave of silent nods, quiet tears, and clenched fists passed through. The survivors, the soldiers, the builders. The new world had begun, not with a bang, but with a vow. Never again. Above them, the stars glittered, no longer symbols of fear, but invitations, because Earth had learned how to fight. Now it would learn how to reach, and in time, how to lead. The end.